Real JP Multimedia, proud sponsor of the Nerdball Podcast. Here to help you with all things audio, video, graphics, photo, web design. From weddings to real estate, commercial business to private use, we offer a big variety of services for almost any budget. And if we can't do it, we will find someone who can. Find us at realjp.com. That's REELJP.com. Real JP Multimedia.
I'm Trey Smith, and this is the Nerdball Podcast.
This is the Nerdball Podcast with Lorenzo Melcher.
All right, Trey, thanks for coming on the podcast. One of my best friends since high school. I texted you, and I feel like there was no doubt. You're like, yes, I want to come on the podcast. Almost like you almost responded too quickly. Like, why haven't you asked me sooner? So.
Well, I don't understand what's taking so long. I mean, you've only been doing this for a couple of years now, at least.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So sometimes I feel like, and I know you guys make fun of me just because you're my friends, but sometimes I'm like, well, I got them in my back pocket if I ever need someone to go.
if the well starts to run dry, I've got these idiots so I can pop on here and figure out something to talk about for 30 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever it is.
Well, that's why I have Scott Bucher on so much, because he's just ready to go. So
yeah, there you go. I guess I'm not a good enough dad. I know you and Jim and Zollers have your little dad cast thing, but yeah, I guess I'm not a good enough dad. That's
hey,
right.
you're more than welcome to pop on every once in a while, man. We have other dads on. We've done one draft. We're doing another draft soon. So yeah, we'll have you on, man.
Like an NFL, like fantasy football draft?
No, it's just we just draft random stuff. So like our first one was the parameters was it's just you and your kids, no wife, no mother of the child, and you had to have a quick dinner. So it was basically a quick dinner draft. You had one fast food, one at home, and one takeout from a restaurant, and then another wild card from any of those. So we just drafted, and then we talk about it, make fun of each other, and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, and then this next one that we're doing is fictional dads. So we're just, it's just
Jim's
whatever.
100% going to say Homer Simpson.
Oh yeah, if I get the number one pick, I'm going to take over. Yeah,
Sorry, Jim.
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
He is going to take it.
100%.
So one of the main reasons. Well, first of all, before we get to any of that stuff, any college football, because that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because that was something I know when we were in high school. I wasn't into it really until I started hanging out with you guys, and then I picked a team, probably because I watched Texas at your house when they played Michigan.
Yeah.
But you've loved college football since forever? Is this something you've really been into?
Man, I don't know. I wouldn't say forever. I mean, I think my earliest recollection would be not too long after we moved to Northwest Ohio from West Virginia.
Okay.
Is when I guess I really started to get into it. I do remember my first college football game though was West Virginia. And funny enough, they were playing Bowling Green.
Oh,
which I mean, that whole story was my grandpa literally snuck me out of the house in the morning, and I had no clue what was going on. And next thing you know, we're in Morgantown at Mountaineer Field, and Mountaineers are kicking off against Bowling Green, and I was just, I was like, why is this team called Bowling Green but they're orange? I do not understand what's going on.
How old were you?
Oh man, 7, 8 maybe.
Oh wow, okay. All right.
Yeah, I was young. But that's my first recollection of college football. And honestly, moved to Northwest Ohio, and Karp was always a big Buckeye fan, but obviously I wasn't gonna cheer for the same team he was cheering for at the time. So,
sure.
But it was easy to fall in love with Michigan football. I mean, we lived right there. Half of the friends I had were Michigan fans, the other half were Ohio State fans in most cases. Charles Woodson, the '97 Michigan team was.
I was gonna say they were good. They were good then, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of grew from there. It's just, to me, like, there's nothing better than spending an entire Saturday sitting there watching game day for a couple hours, and then living in Texas now in Central Time Zone, so 11 a.m. rolls around, and the first games are kicking off, and usually we'll watch games throughout the day, and end it with a little Pac-12 after dark, which, who knows what that'll look like. Might be Pac-12 / whack,
Yeah.
or Mountain West, whatever it is now, after dark. So it's just something I really look forward to. And fortunately, I married a woman who loves college football just as much as I do for the most part.
What's her team?
So she likes Michigan. She actually liked Michigan before I met her. I don't know how that happened, but that was it. That's what happened. But so, it's gotten a little harder now with, having kids. So I'm having to come to terms with, on Saturdays, might be at a baseball game, or, we're starting Riley in hockey. And so that's going to run from September to March.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
his games will be Saturdays and Sundays from what I understand. So it's going to be kind of a tough one, but I guess it's kind of one of those things you have to get used to as you're growing older and you got kids of your own to deal with. So
yeah, I knew I was getting out of that when I think Mateo was little, but I remember my uncle called and said, "Hey, you watching the Texas-Oklahoma game?" And I'm like, "No, I'm at Home Depot right now."
Yeah.
Stuff for the house,
Yeah, that's I don't think it really happened this fall, because we didn't have Riley in any sports this fall. He did winter flag football, and then this spring he did baseball. So that was kind of and we'd also, just moved into a new house, into a new neighborhood. So we had missed all the registrations, which one thing they don't tell you when you become a parent is like one of the hardest things to do is make sure you're paying attention to the damn registration dates. Yes. Like, it's so hard. Like,
there's so many parents that get upset when they miss a date, especially for baseball and softball here. They're always like, "Oh, that we missed the registration. Do you think they'll let us in late?" And I was part of the board for this baseball softball program. And people don't understand, like, if we let late, like, things are a deadline for a reason. We got to order jerseys. We got to form the teams. We got to do all these things. Like, we can't just, like, keep extending it. But they get so upset.
Yeah. Well, and is that in Perrysburg?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, like, Perrysburg, I'm sure there's no shortage of kids who want to do these activities. In our town, which is a little smaller, but, it's growing pretty rapidly. Like, I think there's probably a little more leeway there for kids who do register late, because they're constantly asking for, like, volunteer coaches, and, hey, if you miss softball signups, like, we're still having it. Like, please sign up for softball, because if no one signs up, we don't have a league. So, but I think that's all going to change here in the next few years, because this place is just, like anywhere in North Texas right now, it's just exploding. So,
have you signed up to be a coach of anything?
No, I haven't.
You said it like I never will.
Yeah, no. Each time he's done something, I've given a lot of thought, and I did end up helping out his flag football team when the coach needed me to, because he had an assistant who had to miss a couple weekends for work.
Okay.
So I helped out, and I loved it, but it's just one of those things, like, especially with, like, baseball. Like, I didn't grow up playing baseball past like little league.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think I probably have enough knowledge about it, but that's just simply from watching baseball growing up. And plus, like, parents are psychos, man. Like,
dude.
And, like, I'm not alone. Like, I'll sit there and and this is Riley's first year playing baseball, so it's a brand new sport to him. And fortunately for him, he's a pretty athletic kid, so he kind of takes things pretty quick and can do it fairly well. But, like, he's 6, so he doesn't pay attention.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't listen, and, like, all the kids for the most part are like that. But I sit there and I just get, like, so frustrated. And so just to be a coach in that situation, I don't know how I would necessarily do. I especially would not want anything to do with, because right now he's doing 6U, and then next spring he'll have to play 8U with the way his birthday falls. But it's all coach pitch, so I don't want any of the responsibility of having to pitch these kids.
Can I tell you? So Lillian played 8U softball. It's kid pitch, but there's no walk. So once you get to 4 balls, the coach comes and throws.
Okay.
There's nothing more nerve-wracking than throwing. Yeah. Not only throwing to. I had to, learn how to throw underhand really well, because that's with softball, dude. It's the worst is when there's 2 strikes and you're like, all right, you only get 1, and the girls just assume it's going to be a good pitch all the time. So however I throw it in there, they're going to swing at it. So I got to just make everything perfect. And then to know, like, there's certain girls where I have to pitch to their bat because they only swing a certain way.
You've got to find the bat.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead and give me a practice swing.
Yep,
so I know where the hell I got to put this thing.
Every time.
Well, like, I know we're here to talk about college football, but so it's a whole new world for us, right? I mean, because he's only been involved in a couple sports at this point.
Yeah.
Because he's finally starting to get to the age, and he ended up making, like, a select team.
I saw that. Yeah.
Comprised of all the kids that were in the league. And so they had 4 practices before we went to a couple of tournaments in the area. And so the first one was about 70 miles away in this place called Glen Rose, Texas, which is known for being like the dinosaur capital of Texas for some reason. I'm not really sure why.
Like fossils or what?
No, I don't know. I mean, like you walk around, like drive past people's houses, and they'll have like velociraptors in the front yard. Like it was a cool little town, but it was just very strange. And I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
But it was also, I mean, it's been just ungodly hot down here. I mean, we're on like day 10 or 11 of over 100 degrees, and there's just no end in sight. And now we've got the ERCOT, who's like controls the power grid, telling people to like conserve energy.
Yep.
Like turn your thermostats to 80. I'm like, no.
Nah.
Like you guys should have figured this out, a year ago when everything froze. Like the power grid was an issue. But so we were down there, and it was a Saturday, Sunday thing, and man, it was just so hot. It was well over 100 degrees with the heat index. And we're like, are we doing the right thing here? Like these kids, like, I mean, we brought tents, we brought coolers full of ice with towels in them,
cooling time,
Gatorades, waters. But I got a pretty good, baptism into like parents at that first term, because there's this town called Aledo down here that's just, pretty hardcore. They brought 4 teams of their own to this tournament.
Oh my God. And
the parents are just, chirping back and forth, like 2 pitches in. I'm like, this is 6U modified T-ball. Like, what is happening? And when that starts to happen, like you want your team to win even more, right? So you can kind of like, give it to them. Like, but so that was a good time. And they had a tournament a week later, which was a little closer. And, they lost the first 2 games on Saturday. So Sunday we had to win to keep playing on. And it was one of those things where like, man, like I want my kid to win, and I want him and his friends to experience this, but damn, if we can be done after this 9:00 game and not come back at 2:00 when it's 104, like this isn't the worst thing in the world. So
you're like, actually, can you get mercy too? So it's even
well, they played their butts off, and it was one of those things where like our team was a true like all-star / select team, and they only had 4 practices together. Some of these teams had, I think they had their tryouts in December and had been playing together since February.
Yeah.
So, they're just kind of outmanned, and, it's just, there was one kid on the team who hit a couple dingers. I'm like, dude, what's going on here? Like, but the good news is Riley loves baseball, it seems like, so it might be something that we kind of go through for most of his, childhood. So it'll be a good time.
How fun is it too with Riley? Because the other ones are, I think, too little. But when they you see them find something that they really enjoy to do,
well, that's
so
what I mean. I wasn't sure how baseball was going to go for him, because he's. I think most kids his age are probably the same way, but it's kind of like a squirrel, right? Like he'll be doing something and like, oh, car, and like take off, right?
Yeah.
So baseball's a little slower game. It's definitely like thinking man's game. There's just, nuances, and, it's very technical in some aspects. So for him to kind of like fall in love with it and, want to do it, like it was pretty cool to watch that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean,
and I got to buy a Dodgers hat. So his team was the Dodgers. Like, well, I got to get some Dodgers gear now. So
sure. Yeah.
To buy a new cap. So.
I was wondering why you had that hat on, but
yeah.
We used to be that way in Perrysburg. Used to be where it was major league teams, and they changed it for whatever reason. I don't know, but it's so much fun. We were at a baton competition this weekend.
I do love watching her baton videos that you post,
dude. So 14-hour day Saturday, a 9-hour day Sunday. We get home Sunday night. At Monday she has practice. She goes to practice for 3 hours. She doesn't have to. She wants to stay there there's like a time in the middle where she can come home, but she just stays there. We just did it for forever, and you want to keep but she loves it. Dude, she's gotten so much better too. So this was her biggest competition. She's only been doing competitions for a year. This is her biggest one. I think the biggest one the whole team goes to. And from the beginning, just the beginning of the year to like now, it's crazy how much. And I look at her do stuff. I'm like, man, she's 7 years old. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
But she loves it. Do you, and it sounds like, you have a job where you're able to take your kids wherever they got to go if you have to, and go out of town and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you feel, not pressure, but do you feel like, man, my kids work hard for these things. I want to go watch them. Not just for me, because I want to watch my kid, but for them too, like to know like, hey, I'm here. I want to watch you. Do you feel like you have to do that kind of stuff or is Riley too little for you to feel that yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's too young right now. I mean, I think if he would prefer I'd be there. And fortunately, I do have a job where I don't have to work on weekends and things like that, which is helpful. And I'm able to take him to all his practices and whatnot. But I think if I wasn't there, I think he'd understand why. And
I can't imagine. Like, I went to this baton competition, and it's 95% moms. There's like hardly any dads there, and I can't imagine like not being there. Like, she worked so hard for this one competition for me to just sit at home and do nothing.
Well, that's the thing about Kay's job has a little less flexibility, right? So she has to be at her office until a certain time, and then if one of her employees like calls out, like that changes her schedule up, and so it's usually me taking him to all these practices and things like that. It is definitely like, all right, I'm sitting here with all the moms, like, like, hey guys, just hanging out, like. It's definitely interesting.
It does seem like a mom thing. Like, don't worry, I'll run around. Dad's got a mow or whatever.
Yeah. But I'm glad I get to do it. And it's it's time for him and I to spend together. So,
for sure.
Because one day he's gonna want nothing to do with me, I'm sure. So,
I don't know. I'm sure there was. I don't remember, and I should ask my parents. I don't remember if there was ever a time I was like, did you ever notice where I'm like, nah, don't talk to me, because I don't know if that ever happened to me.
No, I mean, I guess it's a little different for me though, right? Because Kark was our stepdad, so I don't think there was ever a reason like I don't want to talk to this guy at all, But I think it's just one of those things where like as we got older, we just spent more time in our rooms, playing video games and hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully Riley will put up with me for a little while.
Hopefully it's just not when you feed him and then he goes back into his room.
Right.
So again, one of the main reasons to have you on is college football, and I thought of you because we've discussed it. Of all my friends, you're super into it, super into recruiting and all that stuff too, which I find super fascinating. Just not enough to like really even dig into Texas stuff. Like, but do you is that something you still follow pretty heavily too, like recruiting?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more specifically Michigan. Like, I don't really give a shit what LSU does. I mean, you see it because usually these kids are being recruited by the same national team, so you kind of see it. But yeah, I mean, I pretty much every day of my life I'm reading something about college football. And a little secret, like, I love realignment. Like, I think it's the most interesting thing that can happen during college football.
Yeah.
One of the reasons is because it gives us something to talk about during the off season.
Yeah.
When things are kind of slow and they're kind of in between. Spring ball's done, so you've got this kind of lull. I think they start the fall camps here in a couple of weeks, like usually beginning of August.
Yeah.
And to me, realignment is just because it's just so jarring, and like especially now with like the changes that are happening, they're so significant, to other programs, and it kind of like it has a massive trickle down effect. So like last year around this time, it was Texas and Oklahoma. That news was leaking out. Like around here, it's a pretty big damn deal, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's it's for one, because the A&M fans were all pissed off because they had always kind of held it over Texas. Said that, we're in the SEC now, so we're always kind of looking down on you. But that was like a massive shift.
How did people in Texas take it? Like, were they excited about it? For me, being a Texas fan, like I'm all about it. I can't wait.
Yeah. I mean, careful what you wish for.
Because, sure. Yeah. No,
there's a reason why every time Oklahoma went to the college football playoff, they got their doors blown off. Whether it be LSU or Alabama, there's a reason. In Texas, it's not quite to Oklahoma's level. At least they weren't, the past couple of years. So
no, I fully get that part of it. Like, I'm not excited the fact that, hey, we got to play juggernauts all the time now. Yeah. I just like it because, eventually, at some point, right? Eventually, people are going to have to stop saying after week 2 when they beat Notre Dame, Texas is back. Eventually, it's going to eventually it's going to be
Texas
true.
Is gonna have to be back,
right? Yeah, it's going to have to be true. And maybe they play Alabama this year, and hopefully it's not 40-0. But this is a glimpse of what it's going to be like, and I like that every game matters because really it doesn't when you're in conference, because especially like let's say Big Ten, like everyone's going to beat Rutgers. The big teams are supposed to beat those teams, and when it's in a big conference like this, like you don't really have those teams. Same thing with the Big Ten now with the California schools coming over the Big Ten. It's gonna be like, okay, well, where's the easy part of our schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, because it's going to be fascinating to see the new rivalries kind of start to grow. And I think you kind of already saw that a little bit with, Texas playing LSU and Joe Burrow's national championship year, like, because there was already so much hate between those two teams, and, they hadn't played each other. Like it sounds like they played each other often. But so it'll be cool to watch those kind of new rivalries grow. But I think it is a little concerning or like sad, like how strange is it going to be seeing UCLA run out of the tunnel against Iowa in like November, and when they join the conference in 24, like it's just like it's just a weird thing to me. And like I mentioned, like the trickle-down effect, like I don't know what's going to happen with the Pac-12. I don't know if it really does. I know today that because the Big 12 Media Day started today in Arlington, and I think the Big 12 commercial pretty much came out and said, we're open for business.
Yeah,
we're reaching out to people. People are reaching out to us. So I don't necessarily think the Big Ten will do anything else. I don't think the SEC will do anything else until Notre Dame makes their decision, which I think they're going to take their sweet ass time doing.
Sure,
because they have no reason to jump in there yet. But I do think that the Big 12 is probably going to try and see what they can do about. And the big rumor or the things floating around are the two Arizona schools, Colorado, and then possibly Utah.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because, BYU is joining the Big 12, not this season, but the next. So I think it's just weird to watch, like, because you always grew up and it was, the winner of the Big 10 is going to go play in the Rose Bowl against, the winner of the Pac-12. And even though that's changed a little bit with the college ball playoff, like those rivalries and that, like, and nostalgia. I've never been one to like, exactly. And, I've never been one to like, cheering for the Big Ten in these games. I really don't. If Ohio State goes gets the doors blown off against someone in a big game, like okay, like I'm not cheering for them just because I'm pumping up the Big Ten, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that thinking. But it's just it's nostalgia. It's so much history between those like conferences, so it'll be very strange. And I don't know if you've seen it yet, but there was a graphic floating around Twitter to where it's a map of the United States and it's got all the Big Ten logos. And then it's got USC and UCLA down there. Like this geographically makes zero sense. But it's from what I understand, like it's damn near 100% driven by the TV networks. Last year ESPN was kind of like the driver behind Texas and Oklahoma, and this year is Fox. Like, oh well, we're going to go ahead and one up these guys, and just pumping so much money in.
You were talking about the feeling like of UCLA coming out against Iowa. How long do you think will that last though? The weirdness of it, because Nebraska came over along with whoever, I don't remember anybody, whoever else, but when they came to the Big Ten, like, hey, this is weird, but now it's like it doesn't seem weird anymore. At some point, it's going to be normal, right?
Yeah, sometimes it'll be normal, sure.
Yeah.
For me, Nebraska was never strange. It was strange when it was like Rutgers and Maryland because they came after Nebraska did.
Yeah.
A couple of years at least. And so that was a little strange. I think that was 2014, maybe they Rutgers and Nebraska, Rutgers and Maryland joined. But like that was a little weird. And like I agree 100%. Like one day it won't be strange. But I don't necessarily think that the whole idea of like two like monster conferences is great for college football. It'll definitely be interesting, and should give us a bunch of really interesting games. But I also like to watch Ohio Bobcat football on Tuesday through Wednesday, Thursdays. Like what happens to those schools who, hopefully they'll still get those one or two non-conference games with these types of schools. So, they need to be able to get that huge check to put towards their athletic department. But, how many games will that actually be? So I don't know. I think it's so interesting, and they just never stop talking about it. So for me, I like it because, like I said, there's that lull and like, hey, this has happened. This is literally going to take us all the way up to camp. And then we can start talking about camp and getting ready for the season. So,
well, everybody's all about let's expand our footprint in people's minds. Like how can we get people talking about us for 12 months of the year? The NFL is really good at it. They extend everywhere, and not just obviously the season, but then where they have their draft, when they start their camps, all this stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, how long is it before there's an NFL team in London?
Sure,
like
yeah.
The Jacksonville Jaguars are essentially London's team as it is. So I mean, that'll be, I'm sure, the NFL's version of expansion and realign their own little kind of realignment stories. So
yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think it's cool and I like it, and I'm never like, hey, let's keep everything the same. If things change, right? I guess it's supposed to, but it does. I would like to see schedules eventually when there's like a 20-team conference. Like, what are you going to do with that?
Well, but even before we get to that point, though, like, it's not just football coming from USC and UCLA, right? Like, it's women's volleyball, it's like men's lacrosse.
It's a lot of money to travel.
It is a lot of money. And I obviously the figures that they're putting out there, like, the schools aren't going to be hurting for money. So maybe it's nothing, but like, if these people are still supposed to be student athletes, which is very loosely used now because they can make money off their own images, and which is 100%, they should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like, we've got the USC women's soccer team's flying to Rutgers for like a Thursday game. Like, are they going to, like, from a scheduling standpoint, like, do you just start like booking them? Like, okay, you're going to do 2 games when you guys go, so you don't have to worry about it later on down the road.
Yeah.
And like, in terms of football, like, when do the USC and UCLA football teams get into town now? Because an 11 a.m. kick is going to be a 9 a.m. for them.
I mean, it's gotta be like, again, the student part of a student athlete is like you said, very uselessly, almost. I don't want to say useless, but it's about there. Yeah, it's about there. Yeah. So like, if it's going to be like the NFL model, I'm sure they'll look into that. Okay, what's the NFL team do when a West Coast team goes to East Coast? What do they do? And that's that's what we should do, because you're right. It will feel weird, and that's the last thing you want to do is like, hey, we're gonna fly across the country, and also our bodies, it's gonna make it feel like 3 days ago.
Right.
So,
100%.
You also brought up when I was talking about the schedule, and because eventually I think it is going to be big conferences, and how I think it's going to be more than 2. I think, but scheduling and that kind of stuff. And then I started thinking about even high school, like here the NLL shifted, and we got, I think now there's 11 schools in the NLL, and they want 16 eventually. But then
just to have 2 divisions within the conference, and then they can have a championship game. Like, is that what the goal is?
I thought it was, but they have we're gonna have 2 divisions now. They're separated by students, number of students.
Enrollment.
So there's a smaller division and a bigger division. So you can't have a conference champ. I mean, I guess you can, but how often is that smaller school gonna beat the bigger school?
It sounds like they're trying to like level out like the talent, like in the skill of the teams.
Yes, and that's what it's going to be. And I don't know if there's just going to be a champion for each division or what.
Yeah.
But even that, like, it's a weird schedule now because we don't have enough teams, and I guess they have contracts, or they're going to have contracts with like the city league and others to fill games, because they don't want the big schools playing the little schools all the time. But I'm excited for it, because it's like all the schools we play out of conference already. Whitmer, Findlay, Clay's in there. They might be in the smaller side. I can't remember.
Well, I mean, Perrysburg, and we didn't do this, and I don't remember it happening while we were going through school. But I mean, how many times have you guys gone down to Dublin now and played some of those schools in non-conference? Like, we never made long trips like that. Like, so, the longest trip we made, what was Clyde?
Sure,
maybe Findlay for the scrimmage. Like,
So, and it's like, I talked to Kriegel about it when he was still coaching, and some of the other coaches. It's those schools that we would play, like we just got too big for them, and they didn't want to play us anymore. So even City League, like, why are we going to play Perrysburg? We're going to get murdered. So so we had to start expanding it, going down. We played 2 Dublin schools, Jerome and Coffin. We go to Jerome this year, and then the year after that we go to Marysville. So we have to expand, and we got to play these better teams. And unfortunately, that was the hard part of our schedule. Now our entire schedule is going to be difficult because of just how it is now. But I think it makes it makes it fun. So you brought up,
that's what this does, right? It makes college football. There's no weeks off really anymore. Like, you might get 1 or 2 like tune-up games, but after that, like, you got to be dialed in, because it might be we're playing Colorado's our last non-conference, and then we go Nebraska, Wisconsin, like Iowa. Like that's a pretty rough go of it. I mean, and the SEC is gonna have their own stories like that, and so it'll be great for TV, and that's why they're getting all this money, right? Like eyeballs are gonna be glued to the TVs. So I know at least mine will be.
No more. SEC is gonna have no more. Well, it's not 2A anymore, but those little cupcake schools right before their rivals at the end of the year.
Oh, like the Citadel, like Auburn plays the Citadel the week before they play Alabama.
Yeah.
I don't know if you might still see those, but they might try and squeeze them in. I mean, because who knows? I don't know. You would think they'd all have to play 9 conference games schedules, but I think the SEC right now just does 8, right? They might still be able to squeeze in that.
Yeah,
squeeze in that little sister of the poor.
I guess hey, they'll spin it like we're helping them out. Here's some money. Yeah.
But that's, I mean, I don't know if you know something, like if I've got the option in like November to watch, Ole Miss play, say Auburn, or Northwestern play Minnesota, I'm gonna watch the SEC game. Is it like I'll watch Michigan 100%, and then I'll keep an eye on what Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State are doing. But most of the games I watch are usually the SEC games.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there's a Big 12 game down here, that's because there's usually 0 defense ever being played. So
those are fun too.
Those are fun too.
I was never a big I'll watch any football game. It changed a little bit once I started coaching football because I understood what they were doing and I just watch it differently. But now Mateo has been like, we'll just be watching TV and he's like, Dad, and I'll just come downstairs and just watch them a football game, like a random game. And awesome. I was like, who's playing? He doesn't know all the abbreviations. So he'll have to like either tell me or like it says Tigers, but I don't know what school. So I help out there. But so I think that's funny. But he just watches random games, and I think it's same thing with NFL.
Cool thing.
Yeah, he's getting super into it.
I mean, and to me, like, there's just no better time than fall. Like having a game on in the background, whether I'm watching it or not, like it's gonna be on. Like there's just something like just a comfort that kind of like comes over me. Like, okay, it's fall, college football's on, like everything's good.
Yeah. This is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, this is how it should be.
You touched a little bit on the players getting paid now. And I've heard other people like I listen to Ryan Russillo's podcast. He talks about it. He goes, he brought up a good point because he says people like get all worked up over like, oh, this guy has a 7-figure deal. Like we don't know what that entails, right? This is what it says, but maybe it's stretched out, or maybe it's like, hey, he gets this money only if these things happen or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's still a lot of money, and some, like you said, I agree with you. Like this is something that should happen. I like to see like people. I like to see people get upset about it, though.
I mean, I think the disappointing part, in my opinion, is like the NCAA just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And kind of like try to push it onto the schools, and like the states to handle it. And then when the time came, it's just been like a free for all. And I 100% think kids should be able to make money off their name, image, and likeness. That's great, but it's just there's no like set standards or like practices in place. And I think that's a big part where like the universities need to do a good job of trying to help these kids. I mean, because if you're a 17-18-year-old kid who's coming from no money and you have a school say, hey, if you come play ball here, we can guarantee you $200K from some name, image, and likeness deal, which isn't the way it's supposed to work, but schools are doing it that way. You're going to say yes, right? I mean, why would you not?
Yeah.
I just think like hopefully there's someone on the backside like helping these kids like, hey, you're going to have to pay taxes. So get ready for that. Like get ready to learn how to do like worry about all that stuff. And to me, there's just so many dynamics that go into it. Like, and kind of like obviously it goes hand in hand with recruiting, right? So Michigan's big thing has been, they want the students to have a transformational experience when they come to Michigan, not a transactional one. Well, that's probably part of the reason why Michigan's recruiting class has kind of been off to a slow start now. Like it's only July, so there's a whole season to go where this can change.
Yeah.
But for everything I've read, Michigan isn't one of the schools who's saying, hey, if you come play here, like this is what you'll get. they've told kids, once you get here, we will do everything we can to help you make as much as you can possibly earn.
Yeah.
But there are schools, and it's not hard to point out the ones that are doing it, right?
Sure.
Texas A&M. Like it's like they're basically telling these kids, hey, we will make sure you get this much money the day you step on campus.
Yeah.
And that's just not the way it's supposed to be done. But again, like there's no rules. The NCAA is not going to do anything about it. Like I know some states have rules in place, and that I think Michigan's one of them. That's kind of made it a little harder for the universities in the state to kind of navigate the NIL waters. But I'm all about these kids making money. I just wish there was a better way of kind of standardizing it, I guess, or like, putting practices in place to make sure everyone's doing it the right way. But I mean, at the end of the day, before NIL, where SC schools not dropping bags anyways. Like,
yeah, there's still agents and stuff helping kids get to school.
Was it Tennessee a couple years ago? The kid was like, yeah, they got handed a bunch of cash in like a McDonald's bag. Like, they're still dropping. Like these bags are still getting dropped in these kids' laps, and like, how can you say no to it? Like, I'll never blame a kid for taking money. Like, if someone came to you or I at that age, like, hey,
sure,
here's $80,000 if you want to come play football here. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, done.
And you make a good point about the NCAA. Like, I think everybody knew at some point this was going to happen. So why wasn't there some people in the NCAA saying, okay, this is going to happen, but for the benefit of us and everybody, let's create rules and let's create some sort of parameters.
I think the issue is they can't create rules because it runs into a whole bunch of other problems that, legally, like, who is the NCAA to put rules in this, like, on how much money I can make, right? And I mean, I don't even know if I even know enough about all of that to get into it. Like,
no, please fake it right now. Go.
It's just there's a lot that goes into it, and they just basically didn't do anything, and then the floodgates opened. The crazy part was the floodgates and NIL opened with about the same time that you could basically transfer for free.
Dude, that is right? I think that is more wild than
like money. It's nuts, right? I mean, like when and then all of a sudden, it's not surprising you've got these stories where, the kid who just won the Biletnikoff at Pitt is now being courted by USC to come play football there. And like the numbers you hear is like, oh, $3 million. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, so now you have a Biletnikoff, so the best receiver in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I get why he'd want to leave, when your quarterback gets drafted in the first round, like, Kenny Pickett's gone. Like, I don't know who's going to be throwing me the ball, or I don't trust this kid to throw me the ball and like have the same success I had. Like, yeah, I'm going to go to USC and, play for the guy who I sit there and, just watch, like, light up scoreboards. Like, I get it, but like, it's just created so much drama.
Yeah.
And like, if a coach can take a job at the drop of a hat, like a kid should be able to transfer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for both of those things to kind of hit at the same time, it's just been crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And the kids will, for forever, my old boss, when I worked for University of Toledo, is a huge Ohio State fan. And we talk about recruiting all the time. And I would always ask him, like, why would a 5-star quarterback want to go to a school where they just recruited a 5-star quarterback? And this is obviously before transfer rules and NIL and all that stuff. And we always talk about, like, well, they obviously think they're better than this other person, right? Now those kids can still do that, but now it's so much easier to be like, I'm cool, I'm out. It didn't work
right.
out.
I mean, so that's why, like, and yeah, I'm still like enjoy following recruiting, but now I'm like, if a kid commits somewhere else or even commits to Michigan, I'm like, okay, I guess we'll see if he actually is on the roster come, when they're supposed to be on campus, because what a kid does today, and this can be said about, realignment, like what might be true today might not be true tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's if there's one thing about college football, it's like, it's just constantly changing. And like, you can never say something is like a certainty, because, tomorrow it's going to change.
Yeah. Well,
but I mean, so why would a kid so Quinn Ewers was a perfect example, right?
Yeah.
So, he played football about 30 minutes away from us here. And, he was top high school quarterback in the country, like not even close. And okay, he commits to Ohio State. We're like, well, that's strange, because they've got CJ Stroud, Ohio State, routinely recruits, really talented quarterbacks. Like, is he really going to go and sit? Well, and then you start coming to find out, oh, he's got like these NIL deals in place, and like, that's why he's going to be up there. And, You know, he's as soon as he gets on campus, you know, he's appearing on like Twitter ads for like car dealerships. And then the kid played like 3 snaps, which I get because CJ Stroud can sling a football. Like I understand why he's there. And you know, CJ's kind of, you know, taking his time because I think he rode the bench for a year, and you know, it's his turn to get in there. And the kid's super talented. Well, you know, the season ends, and next thing you know, Quinn Ewers is transferring out. Like, okay, like who didn't see that coming? And like, what happens with that NIL money? Like, has he been paid all of it? Like, does he have to give it back? Like, who knows? Like, what the agreements are? You know, hopefully these kids have like lawyers or, you know, family members who know what the hell they're doing, like looking over all this stuff with them. But you know, now Quinn's back down here in Texas.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and then I thought
he should have gone in the first place.
Yeah, and I thought there was no way Arch Manning would go there. So now Arch Manning's there. So one of them's going to transfer.
Doesn't make any sense. Like,
one of them's got to transfer.
Right. One of them's going to have to transfer. And, you know, I'm guessing Quinn Ewers is going to win the job. And if Texas has a successful season, like Arch Manning has to see the writing on the wall, right? Like, I'm not going to play here. If I think I'm good enough to play right away, why would you not go to a school where you can play right away? So I don't know, man. And maybe just in a different life, I think it would have been awesome to be a college football coach, like recruiting these kids, because I'm sure it's got to be the hardest thing in the world and it never ends. But I think it would just be a really fun thing to do. You know, just to go in these kids' houses and, you know, meet them and, you know, try and get them to come to your school, because it's the lifeblood of college football, right? Like, it's talent. If you don't get these kids to come to your school, then chances are like you're not going to have as much success as you want to have. And then there's a reason why, right? And then you won't have a job. But I mean, there's a reason why, you know, Alabama and Ohio State and Georgia and Clemson have been just, you know, the perennial like teams in the college football playoff, is because they bring in the top talent. Yeah. So I don't know. Part of me, I was hoping, you know, NIL would kind of level that playing field, but you know, Michigan being Michigan, like the stance they've taken on it has pretty much screwed them. And then like when it comes to transfers, so like for me in my fandoms, like when it comes to transfers, like if you're essentially not a grad student, you really can't transfer to Michigan. Oh, really? Because you lose a ton of your credits. Oh. And I don't know the exact reason, but I think the whole goal is have, when you get your degree, the majority of the credits came from the university. So like if you're a sophomore or junior, it doesn't make any sense for you to transfer to Michigan. Yeah. Because you're going to lose credits that you've earned. Now, I mean, if getting your degree is a big deal to you, then maybe it's not so much of a roadblock. But that's why like Michigan brings in a lot of grad transfers, because they've already got degrees in hand. And then I guess a freshman could technically transfer, you know, because he hasn't accumulated that many credits to begin with. Yeah. But it's just all the stuff that I was hoping would help Michigan, you know, especially after their most successful season in years. Yeah. And they just kind of like just screwed themselves, you know. And it didn't help that, you know, Jim Harbaugh had his what I assume is his last flirtation with the NFL. And then, you know, both offensive and defensive coordinators bolted for different jobs. Like, so there's not a surprise that Michigan recruiting is struggling the way it is. Yeah. But it is disappointing.
Well, I think regardless of all these changes, and you said maybe, you know, the thought was leveling the playing field. The big schools are just going to get bigger and better. And that's just, no matter what you do, that's just what's going to happen. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're still early on, right? I mean, season come around and these schools can start like Miami, Florida, like they're another school, like, what, you know,
that's another one. You're like, they're back.
Well, like Mario Cristobal, he's a good recruiter. You don't know how good of a coach he is, right? Yeah, yeah. I mean, because he took over an Oregon job that was just, you know, filled with talent, and when you've got the power of, you know, Phil Knight and Nike behind you, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Like, but like if Miami comes out, and I think they have a pretty good quarterback. That Van Dyke kid's supposed to be pretty good, but you know, if they have a season where they go like 8-4 or 7-5 or 9-3, like, are those kids still going to want to go there? You don't know. So yeah. I don't know. I think Michigan should have a pretty good team this year. So hopefully that'll turn things around in the recruiting standpoint, but who knows?
We can both wear our "We're Back" shirts.
Yes, we're back. Well, hey, at least Michigan won a Big Ten championship last year. They may have gotten housed.
That is true.
They may have gotten pants by Georgia in the playoff,
but who wouldn't have?
A lot of teams get pants in the playoff. Right? They just had what 12 guys get drafted in the first round or something crazy like that. And I found this thing on Twitter I want to read to you. So sure. It says, inflation is the highest it's been in the U.S. since 1981. The defending college football champs in 1981, Georgia Bulldogs. The defending college football champs in 2022, Georgia Bulldogs. Moral of the story, UGA winning the national championship is bad for Americans. So that's why I love Twitter. Just stupid shit like that.
You're on, I feel like you're on Twitter more than any of my other friends.
Twitter is like the only one I really use like a lot. Yeah.
I don't use a lot of them. I use probably Facebook more than anything because just posting stuff about my kids and
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, but Twitter is the fastest way to get like information about like what's happening.
Yes.
So I think that's pretty much why. I mean, all day today. So today was the first day of NHL free agency. Okay. So I was just zero focus on work all day just to see what Steve Yzerman's been doing in free agency, because I'm so tired of my Red Wings sucking ass.
Yeah.
I need it to be done. We've suffered enough. It's been 6 years. It's been awful. I'm ready for them to start winning some hockey games.
Twitter ruined the NBA draft.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, okay. First of all, the NBA draft, I got problems.
What's wrong with that?
I can't get over the fact that the talking heads will sit there and tell you, "Hey, yeah, Indiana's trading this pick to the Raptors," and then the commissioner goes up and selects the kid, hands the kid a fucking Indiana Pacers hat, takes all the pictures.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows he's going to Toronto. Like, just wait. Either wait or give him the right hat, please. Like, it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
So, now this kid's got all these like memories taken where he's like wearing like a Pacers hat and never play a single second for him.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Dude,
but yes, I mean, like Woj bombs who are dropping draft picks like 30 seconds before they even happen, if not more. Like, come on.
And now it's a race between Woj and Shams to get stuff tweeted out.
And I'm like, man, like that. I don't watch much of like this year. I watched the first round game because the Pistons were picking 5.
Yeah.
So I did watch at least.
They had a good pick too.
And they ended up trading with the Knicks and getting the guy at 13.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. I'm a big NBA fan. But,
dude, my favorite part of the draft wasn't even the draft itself. I forget where I was at. I don't know if I was. I think I was coaching a Lillian's game. So Mateo was at my parents' house, and I walked in, and he's watching the draft, and I had no idea he was like interested in it or knew anything about it. And he had it on. He's like, "Dad, the draft's on. So and so went first, and this team's up next." I'm like, "All right." So I just sat down and watched it. He was all about it.
That's pretty cool. I look forward to those days.
Just unfortunately, we bought him a DeJounte Murray jersey last year. Authentic one, a super expensive one.
Yeah.
And then peace. I'm out.
That was stupid.
I wanted him to have it so bad.
Like, it is pretty cool because like Riley will come downstairs and be like, "Hey, Dad, did you see so and so beat so and so 75-73?" I'm like, "No, man, I didn't see that. That's awesome, man."
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, it's really cool." Like, okay.
You're like, in your head, you're like, he doesn't know. I don't give 2 shits about that team, those teams.
Right. But it's just so funny. Like,
he's into it.
He's at the age where he's retaining more than what we think he is.
Yes.
Right. So, which is not great for me because, next time the first time he drops an F-bomb, it's clearly going to be on my fault. But
dude, it happened the same age for Mateo too, because that was, he was 2016 when the Indians went to the World Series. That's when I first noticed him like paying attention to baseball because he was asking questions and stuff. But you're right, like he's picking things up and it's scary.
Yeah. Well, that's so like now with him playing baseball, like, "Dad, can you turn on a baseball game?" I'm like, "Oh God." Yeah, let me like, and I don't mind watching the Rangers. Like, we enjoy going to Rangers games, and so I don't mind watching them. But like, if it's like your typical like Wednesday night, the Cardinals are playing the Cubs for the 17th time this year on ESPN, I'm like, I don't care to watch it. But I mean, I think he's just like that because with every sport now, because so he went to basketball camp Monday through Wednesday this week, and every night we're eating dinner. "Dad, can you run a basketball game, please?" I'm like,
"You little summer league action."
Yeah, so I've been watching a whole bunch of summer league to no desire of my own. But I mean, it's just he just loves sports, so it's really cool to see.
Yeah, and anytime you can, especially for us because we love sports, anytime we can foster that, even if it's to the detriment of us, we'll do that.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, we finally got him signed up for youth hockey, so. That I think they start practicing in August. Their games start in September, and they run through February.
Yeah.
So that's just a lot. It's like 42 practices and 18 games. I'm like, okay, this is
for what? A 7-year-old?
Yeah, right. And the way I understand it now, I still play old man hockey, and my games are all over the Metroplex.
Yeah.
It sounds like that it's going to be very similar. So his team will be based out of North Richmond Hills, but they might have a game in McKinney. from what I understand. So that's going to be.
Are you guys going to be
I
able
think
to?
gas is cheap.
Are you? Are you guys going to be able to play hockey at the same time and make it to everyone's games?
I don't know.
Yeah.
This will be the first time we do it. Fortunately, my season is currently starting to wind down. So I don't know how much conflict will be, and maybe it's just the point where I stop playing, I guess. But
yeah,
we'll see. I don't know. I'll know more once I get the schedules. I'll be sure to let you know. I'll shoot you a text message.
Thank you.
Come on the
podcast, talk about it. How, speaking to your old man league, when it's game day, do you have more days where you're like, shit, I don't want to go right now, or are you still to the point where like, yeah, I'm excited for every game?
It depends on where the game is. So we live in North Fort Worth now, and my game this Sunday is actually in Richardson, which is literally going to be an hour and 5-minute drive from my house. So it's those are the days I'm like, man, I really don't want to go play. But and even when the game is closer, like I have some days where I feel like that, but usually when I get there and I do it, I'm like, I'm glad I did this, because it's just kind of a way to kind of get away and do my own thing for a little bit. And I love playing. I still get nervous, which is super stupid.
No, dude,
like, it's so stupid. Like I don't understand why I still get. I'm like, why? Like literally, half these people can't even skate. Like, what am I nervous about, right? But I still get like that kind of like feeling in like the pit of your stomach, or like, man, what? Like really?
I think that's good. If we can hold on to that part of even if it's not necessarily playing a sport, but I get nervous when I'm coaching, right? Anything. Mm-hmm. It can be 8U softball or standing on Friday nights coaching a football game. Like I think that's good, because that means you care. Like you're caring about the outcome, you're caring about how you do, you want to be good teammates, all this stuff. I think once you like lose that and you're just out there messing around, they're like, maybe I shouldn't be out here anymore.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like, I mean, so my hips are awful.
I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I don't play goal anymore. I mean, because I would have a game on a Sunday, and then my hips would kill me Monday through Wednesday. Thursday it'd start feeling a little better, Friday a little better, Saturday I'd feel okay. And then Sunday I do it all over again. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I stopped playing goalie. So for me, it's like, man, I don't know how much longer I'll even be able to keep doing it. Like, just physically, like with the hips, and then with kids and like their obligations and stuff like that. I'm sure there's gonna be a time where like I'm gonna get the look from Kate, and probably gonna be like, you're not signing up this session, right? Like, no, I'm not signing up this session.
Is it expensive?
Yeah. I mean, the league we play in is a little more expensive than one of the other ones around here, but we play more games.
Okay.
It comes down to being like $32 a game.
Okay. All right.
Which is kind of expensive. I mean,
it's not nothing. Yeah.
It's not nothing. I mean, I think it's worth it. I mean,
well,
as long as I can.
Yeah. And as long as you're having fun doing it, like I think it's worth doing. And as long as it's not getting in the way of other stuff, or just like you said, like once Kate's like, all right, hey, we have 3 kids and we got to be at 14 different places today. Like it ain't going to happen, Yeah.
Well, and I see it, right? Like I kind of see my future, because a lot of the guys I play with are older. They have older kids. So, I kind of see how they can make it some weekends and they can't make it other weekends. And usually the reasons are, such and such had this going on and my kid had this going on. So I see my future, and it'll happen one day. I'm sure it's in the near future. So
yeah, that's all right. You've been playing for 3 decades, so
yes, it's time to hang him up.
All right, man. Well, I got to go put my children to bed.
Yes, that's what Kate has been doing. So I need to make sure you send her a thank you text for letting me do this.
Oh, I will. Thanks for coming on, man. It was fun, really fun talking to you. I enjoyed the conversation, not even only about football, but more importantly, just talking about your kids and stuff. It's fun. Yeah. Being so far away, we don't always get to understand what's happening. So I appreciate that part of it too.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I miss you. Send the family my love, and hopefully I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, man.
All right, see ya.
Thanks, everybody, for checking out this episode of the Nerd Ball Podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're hearing this, on any of the podcatchers. On YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We're coming at you 2 times a week now, audio and video. Check us out on all the social medias. Just search the Nerd Ball Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're out there. Gmail, is the nerdballpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to shoot us an email, we'll be happy to get back to you. Thanks to Real JP Multimedia, Cuttlefish Graphics, Perrysburg Junior High STEM Lab, and Big Daddy Graphics for helping out the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.